The cold metal bench felt harsh against 8-year-old Emma's small body as she sat in the courthouse waiting room. Her stepfather, Marcus, paced back and forth like a caged animal, his face red with anger. Every few minutes he would stop and point his finger at her, whispering harsh words that made her shrink further into herself. "This is all your fault," Marcus hissed under his breath, making sure the other people in the waiting room couldn't hear. "If you had just kept your mouth shut, we wouldn't be here." Emma's mother, Sarah, sat on the other side of Marcus, staring at the floor. She hadn't looked at Emma once since they arrived at the courthouse that morning. The little girl's heart felt heavy, like a stone had settled in her chest. She wanted to tell her mother what really happened, but every time she tried to speak, Marcus would give her that look, the same look he gave her at home when no one else was watching. The courthouse security guard, Officer David Martinez, had been watching the family from his post near the metal detectors. Something about the little girl's posture caught his attention. In his 15 years of working courthouse security, he had seen many families going through difficult times, but this child looked different. She seemed afraid, not just nervous like most kids in this situation. David noticed how the man kept leaning down to whisper to the girl, and how she would flinch each time. The woman with them appeared disconnected, almost absent. The little girl's clothes were clean but ill-fitting, and there were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. When a lawyer walked by and accidentally dropped some papers, Emma jumped so violently that she nearly fell off the bench. David's trained eye recognized the signs immediately. This child was living in fear. He had seen it too many times before. But something about this particular case made his chest tighten with concern. The family was waiting for a custody hearing. David had overheard enough conversations to know that Emma's biological father was trying to gain custody, while her mother and stepfather were fighting to keep her. Usually, David stayed neutral in these matters. It wasn't his job to get involved in family disputes. But watching Emma's small frame shake with each harsh whisper from her stepfather, he felt something stir inside him. Marcus suddenly grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her closer to him. "Remember what we practiced?" he said through gritted teeth. "You tell them you want to stay with us. You tell them your father is a bad man who left you. Got it?" Emma nodded quickly, tears forming in her eyes. She glanced toward the bathroom, clearly wanting to escape. But Marcus kept his grip on her arm. David made a decision that would change everything. He slowly walked over to where they were sitting, his heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet waiting room. Marcus looked up, immediately putting on a fake smile and releasing Emma's arm. "Good morning," David said politely. "Is everything okay over here? The little miss looks like she might need some water." "Oh, she's fine," Marcus replied quickly, his voice suddenly sweet and caring. "Just a little nervous about seeing her daddy today. You know how kids can be." David looked down at Emma, who had gone completely silent. Her eyes were wide, and she seemed to be holding her breath. Something in her expression reminded him of his own daughter at that age, scared and looking for someone. "Anyone to help her?" "Well," David said, kneeling down to Emma's level, "sometimes it helps to take a little walk. Would you like me to show you where the water fountain is?" Before Marcus could object, Emma nodded eagerly. For the first time that morning, there was a spark of hope in her eyes. David extended his hand to Emma, and she took it without hesitation. As they walked away from Marcus and Sarah, David could feel the tension leaving the little girl's shoulders with each step they took. As they walked down the courthouse hallway, Emma's small hand trembled in David's larger one. The security guard kept his pace slow and gentle, giving the little girl time to feel safe. They stopped at the water fountain, and David lifted Emma up so she could reach the spout. "Better?" he asked with a kind smile. Emma nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes kept darting back toward the waiting room where Marcus and her mother sat. David had been working with children in crisis, situations long enough to know when someone needed help. He crouched down beside Emma, making sure he was at her eye level. "You know," he said softly, "my job here is to keep everyone safe. That includes you." Something in his voice must have reached her because Emma's eyes filled with tears. She looked around nervously, then whispered so quietly that David had to lean in to hear her. "He's going to be really mad at me." "Who's going to be mad at you?" David asked gently. Marcus. He said if I tell anyone the truth about what happens at home, something bad will happen to Mommy. Emma's voice broke as she spoke. David felt his heart sink. This was exactly what he had suspected. He glanced back toward the waiting room, where he could see Marcus checking his watch and looking impatient. Emma, David said carefully, can you tell me what the truth is? The little girl looked terrified. She wrapped her arms around herself and started to cry. I can't. He said the judges won't believe me anyway because I'm just a kid. He said they'll think I'm lying. David's experience told him that Emma was telling the truth. Children her age rarely made up detailed stories about abuse, especially when they were this frightened. But he also knew that as a security guard, there were limits to what he could do officially, Emma. I want you to listen to me very carefully, he said, putting his hands on her shoulders. There are people here today whose job it is to listen to children. They believe children. They want to help you, but Marcus said Marcus is wrong, David said firmly but gently. And you know what? You don't have to go back to that waiting room if you don't want to. I can take you somewhere safe, where you can talk to people who will listen. Emma looked up at him with wide eyes. Really? But I need you to be very brave. Can you do that for me? Emma wiped her nose with her sleeve and nodded. I think so. David stood up and took out his radio. He knew that what he was about to do could get him in trouble. Security guards weren't supposed to intervene in family matters or remove children from their guardians without proper authorization. But looking down at Emma's tear-stained face, he knew he couldn't walk away. This is Officer Martinez, he said into his radio. I need a child advocacy specialist to meet me at the security office immediately. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. The voice on the other end crackled back. Copy that. Is this related to the custody hearing in courtroom B? Yes, it is. And please notify Judge Harrison's clerk that we may need to delay the proceedings. Emma looked up at him with surprise. You're really going to help me? I promised I would keep you safe, David said, and I always keep my promises. As they walked toward the security office, David could see Marcus standing up in the waiting room, looking around frantically. The man's face was turning red, and he was clearly agitated about Emma's absence. He looks really angry, Emma whispered, pressing closer to David's side. That's okay, David replied. He can't hurt you now. I won't let him. For the first time in months, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, someone was finally listening to her silent cries for help. The security office was small, but felt like the safest place Emma had been in months. David pulled out a chair for her and offered her a juice box from the small refrigerator in the corner. Within minutes, a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile knocked on the door. Hi, Emma, the woman said as she entered. My name is Linda Chen, and I'm here to listen to you. Officer Martinez told me you might have something important to share? Emma looked nervously between David and Linda. She had been let down by so many adults in her life that trusting new people felt scary. It's okay, David said gently. Miss Chen's job is to help kids. She talks to children every day who need someone to believe them. Linda sat down across from Emma, keeping her voice soft and patient. Emma, I know this is scary, but whatever you tell me will be kept safe. My job is to make sure you're protected. Meanwhile, back in the waiting room, Marcus was becoming increasingly agitated. He approached the information desk, demanding to know where his stepdaughter had been taken. Sir, she's with our security team for a routine check, the clerk explained calmly. This is standard procedure sometimes. Standard procedure? Marcus's voice rose. That man took my daughter without permission. I want her back now. Sarah finally looked up from where she had been sitting silently. Maybe we should just wait, Marcus. They probably just wanted to ask her some questions. Questions about what? Marcus snapped. She's 8 years old. What could they possibly need to ask her? Back in the security office, Emma was slowly beginning to open up to Linda, with David sitting nearby. Providing a sense of safety, she started to share her story. Marcus gets really angry when he drinks, Emma whispered. He yells at Mommy, and sometimes he hits her. When I try to help her, he gets mad at me too. Linda nodded encouragingly. That must be very scary for you. He told me that if I ever told anyone, something bad would happen to Mommy, he said. The police wouldn't believe me because I'm just a kid, and that they might take me away to a place where I'd never see Mommy again. Emma, has Marcus ever hurt you? Linda asked gently. Emma's eyes filled with tears again. She nodded slowly. When I wet the bed last month, he got really mad. He said I did it on purpose to make him look bad. He pushed me really hard, and I hit my head on the wall. David felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his expression calm for Emma's sake. He was glad he had trusted his instincts about this situation. And your mommy? Linda continued. Does she know about this? I think she knows, but she's scared too. She cries a lot when she thinks I'm not looking. Sometimes I hear them fighting at night, and she sounds like she's in trouble. Linda was taking careful notes while maintaining eye contact with Emma. After 15 years of working with children in crisis situations, she could tell when a child was telling the truth. Emma's story was consistent, detailed, and matched the behavioral signs she had observed. Emma, I want you to know that you've been very brave today. Telling the truth when you're scared is one of the bravest things a person can do. There was a knock at the door, and David's supervisor, Captain Rodriguez, entered with a serious expression. Martinez, I need to speak with you outside, he said. The family is demanding the child be returned immediately, and they're threatening to file complaints. David looked at Emma, who had gone pale at the mention of being returned to Marcus, double quotes, sir, with respect. I believe this child is in immediate danger. Miss Chen can confirm that we have reasonable suspicion of abuse. Linda nodded. Captain Rodriguez, based on my preliminary assessment, I'm recommending that we proceed with an emergency protective custody evaluation. This child has disclosed incidents that require immediate investigation. Emma grabbed David's hand tightly. Please don't make me go back to him, please. Captain Rodriguez looked at the frightened little girl, then at his officer who had potentially violated protocol to protect her. After a long moment, he nodded. All right, I'll handle the family. Martinez, you did the right thing. Sometimes protecting someone means we have to break a few rules. Word spread quickly through the courthouse about the situation. Judge Harrison, who was scheduled to hear Emma's custody case, was informed about the emergency protective custody evaluation. She made the decision to postpone the original hearing and instead focus on Emma's immediate safety. Emma's biological father, Robert, had been waiting in a separate area of the courthouse. He was shocked when a court officer approached him to explain that his daughter had disclosed abuse and was currently under protective custody. I knew something was wrong, Robert said, his voice filled with regret and anger. Every time I picked Emma up for my weekend visits, she seemed more withdrawn, more scared. But Marcus and Sarah always had explanations. Emma never said anything. Linda Chen continued her evaluation with Emma, who was becoming more comfortable sharing her experiences. The little girl explained how Marcus had convinced her that her father didn't really love her and only wanted custody to hurt her mother. Marcus said Daddy left us because he didn't want me anymore, Emma told Linda. But I remember when Daddy lived with us. He never yelled at me or Mommy. He read me stories and helped me with my homework. What do you remember about when your parents separated? Linda asked gently. Mommy was sad all the time and she said Daddy had to go away. But then Marcus came. And he was nice at first. He brought me toys and took us to fun places. But after he moved in with us, everything changed. Meanwhile, David was dealing with an increasingly hostile Marcus in the waiting room. The man was demanding to see Emma and threatening legal action against the courthouse. You have no right to keep my daughter from me, Marcus shouted. I'm her legal guardian. Sir, I understand your concern, Captain Rodriguez said calmly. But we have protocols to follow when a child's safety is in question. This is standard procedure. Sarah had been mostly silent throughout the ordeal, but now she spoke up. Marcus, maybe we should just answer their questions. If Emma is scared, we need to find out why. Marcus turned on her with a look that made several people in the waiting room uncomfortable. Sarah, you don't know what you're talking about. These people are trying to turn Emma against us. David noticed how Sarah flinched when Marcus raised his voice. Even in public, the man couldn't control his temper completely. This only confirmed David's suspicions about what was happening behind closed doors. Back in the security office, Emma was showing Linda a small bruise on her arm that was mostly hidden by her long sleeves. "This happened 3 days ago," Emma said quietly. "I accidentally spilled my juice at dinner, and Marcus grabbed me really hard. He said accidents happen because people aren't being careful enough." Linda documented the bruise with photographs. Following proper procedure for evidence collection, she was building a case that would ensure Emma's safety. Judge Harrison arrived at the security office to speak with Emma personally. As a family court judge with over 20 years of experience, she had developed a gentle approach with children that helped them feel comfortable sharing difficult truths. "Hello?" "Emma," the judge said, sitting down beside her. "I'm Judge Harrison. I make decisions to help keep families safe. Officer Martinez and Ms. Chen tell me you've been very brave today." Emma looked at the judge with curious eyes. She had imagined judges to be scary people in black robes. But Judge Harrison seemed kind and grandmotherly. "Are you going to make me go back to Marcus?" Emma asked, the fear clear in her voice. "Emma, my job is to make sure you're safe and happy. I won't make any decisions without listening to you first. Can you tell me what would make you feel safest?" For the first time in months, Emma felt like an adult was actually asking for her opinion instead of telling her what she should feel or think. "I want to stay with my daddy," she said firmly. "I love Mommy, but I'm scared when Marcus is there. And I think Mommy is scared too." Judge Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you for telling me the truth, Emma. That helps me understand what needs to happen next." The judge turned to Linda and David. "Based on what I'm hearing, I'm issuing an emergency protective order. Emma will be placed with her biological father pending a full investigation. I'm also ordering that Marcus have no contact with the child during this time." When Emma was reunited with her father Robert in a quiet conference room, the change in her demeanor was immediate and remarkable. The scared, withdrawn little girl who had been sitting silently in the waiting room that morning seemed to come alive again. "Daddy," she cried, running into his arms. Robert held his daughter tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have known something was wrong. I should have protected you better." David watched the reunion from the doorway, feeling a sense of relief and satisfaction he hadn't experienced in his 15 years of courthouse security work. Sometimes the system worked exactly as it should, but it required people willing to step up when they saw something wrong. Linda Chen spent time with Robert, explaining the next steps in the process. There would be a full investigation, counseling for Emma, and legal proceedings to determine permanent custody arrangements. The good news is that Emma is remarkably resilient. Linda told Robert, "Children often recover from traumatic situations much better than we expect, especially when they feel safe and supported." Meanwhile, the conversation between Judge Harrison and Sarah in another room was revealing important information. Without Marcus present, Sarah began to open up about her own experiences. "I was scared too," Sarah admitted, tears flowing freely. "Marcus became controlling and angry after we got married. He said, if I ever left him, or if anyone found out about his temper, he would make sure I never saw Emma again. He convinced me that Robert was trying to take Emma away from me, and I believed him." Judge Harrison listened with compassion but firmness. "Sarah, I understand that you were in a difficult situation, but Emma needed you to protect her. We're going to require some counseling and parenting classes before we can consider supervised visitation rights." Sarah nodded through her tears. "I know I failed her. I just want my daughter to be safe and happy. If that means she needs to be with Robert right now, then that's what should happen." When Marcus was finally informed about the judge's decision, his reaction was explosive. He began shouting threats and had to be escorted from the courthouse by additional security officers. His mask of respectability had completely fallen away. Showing everyone present exactly who he really was, David filed his incident report that evening, knowing that he had potentially violated several protocols by removing Emma from her guardians without following standard procedures. However, Captain Rodriguez and the courthouse administration supported his actions completely. Martinez. Captain Rodriguez said as David finished his paperwork. In 15 years, I've never seen someone read a situation so accurately. That little girl could have suffered for months or years more if you hadn't trusted your instincts. Emma spent her first night in over a year sleeping peacefully. Robert had transformed his spare bedroom into a welcoming space for his daughter, complete with some of her favorite books and a nightlight that projected stars on the ceiling. "Daddy," Emma said as Robert tucked her in. "Why didn't Mommy protect me from Marcus?" Robert chose his words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're scared or confused. Your mommy loves you very much, but she was scared too. The important thing is that you're safe now. Will I ever see Mommy again? Emma asked. I think so, sweetheart. But first, she needs to learn how to make better choices so she can keep you safe. And you're going to talk to some nice people who help kids feel better after scary things happen. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Officer Martinez was nice. He kept his promise to keep me safe. Yes, he did. There are good people in the world who will help you when you need it. You were very brave to tell the truth today. As Emma drifted off to sleep, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Genuine safety. Her father was in the next room. There was no one yelling or threatening. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The investigation that followed confirmed everything Emma had disclosed. Medical examinations revealed evidence of physical abuse. And interviews with neighbors and Emma's teachers painted a picture of a child who had been living in fear for months. 6 months later, Emma was a different child. The dark circles under her eyes had disappeared, replaced by the bright, curious expression of a healthy 8-year-old. She had been attending counseling sessions with a child psychologist, Dr. Patricia Williams, who specialized in helping children recover from traumatic experiences. Emma has made remarkable progress. Dr. Williams told Robert during one of their monthly meetings, she's sleeping through the night, her grades have improved significantly, and she's starting to trust adults again. Children are incredibly resilient when they feel safe and supported. Emma had also been attending supervised visits with her mother. Sarah had completed a domestic violence recovery program and parenting classes as ordered by the court. The visits took place in a comfortable room at the Family Services Center. With a counselor present to ensure everyone's safety and well-being, Mommy looks happier now, Emma told her father after one of these visits. She doesn't seem scared anymore. Sarah had indeed changed dramatically. Free from Marcus's control and manipulation, she had begun to remember who she was before she met him. She had found a job, moved to a small apartment, and was working hard to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. I'm so proud of you for being brave enough to tell the truth, Sarah told Emma during one of their visits. I should have protected you. And I'm sorry I didn't. I'm learning how to be a better mommy. The legal proceedings had concluded with Marcus being charged with multiple counts of child abuse and domestic violence. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to attend anger management and substance abuse programs. He was also prohibited from having any contact with Emma or Sarah. David Martinez received a commendation from the State Courthouse Security Division for his actions that day. The award ceremony was small, held in the courthouse lobby. But Emma and Robert were there to thank him personally. Officer Martinez, Emma said, standing tall and confident, thank you for listening to me when I couldn't use my voice. You heard my silent cry for help. David knelt down to Emma's level, just as he had done that frightening day 6 months earlier. Emma, you found your voice when it mattered most. I just made sure the right people were listening. Robert shook David's hand firmly. You saved my daughter's life. There's no way I can ever thank you enough for having the courage to break protocol to protect her. Judge Harrison, who attended the ceremony, spoke about the importance of trusting instincts when a child's safety is at stake. Sometimes doing the right thing means going against the rules. Officer Martinez understood that protecting Emma was more important than following standard procedures. Emma had started a new school and made several friends. Her teacher, Mrs. Johnson, reported that she was an excellent student who showed kindness and empathy toward other children, especially those who seemed shy or scared. Emma has a special ability to notice when other kids need help. Mrs. Johnson told Robert. Yesterday, she helped a new student who was crying because she was afraid to eat lunch alone. Emma invited her to sit with her friends and made sure she felt welcome. The experience had taught Emma that her voice mattered and that there were trustworthy adults who would listen to children when they needed help. She became an advocate for other kids in her school, often telling her counselor about classmates who seemed troubled or scared. On the 1-year anniversary of that pivotal day at the courthouse, Emma wrote a thank you letter to Officer Martinez. In her careful 8-year-old handwriting, she wrote, "Dear Officer Martinez, thank you for hearing me when I couldn't speak. You taught me that my voice is important and that there are good people who will help kids when they need it. I am happy and safe now. I hope you can help other kids like you helped me." Your friend Emma, David framed the letter and kept it on his desk at work. It served as a daily reminder of why his job was important and encouraged him to continue watching out for children who might need someone to hear their silent cries for help. Emma's story became part of the training program for courthouse security officers, teaching them to recognize signs of abuse and the importance of trusting their instincts when a child's safety is at stake. Today, Emma is thriving with her father, enjoying supervised visits with her mother, and looking forward to a future where she feels safe, heard, and protected. Her silent cry had finally been answered by someone brave enough to listen.